Protests in support of Palestinians have been taking place all across different college campuses. Columbia University, they have been protests all week. Now it's spread. MIT, it's gone to Emory in Atlanta. You've got University of Texas, USC, on and on and on. And what's interesting is how these protests are being framed here in Texas. You got the governor, frankly, saying anybody who protests, they're all criminals. But I thought this was supposed to also be the First Amendment right to speak. In Atlanta, protesters were met with force on the Emory campus. Like other students, they're calling for colleges to divest the funds from Israeli military operations. Some Jewish students on the campuses have called the protest anti-Semitic and said they're scared for their safety. Again, these protests have taken place Columbia, Harvard, University of Texas, USC, and others. Tiffany Loftin, National Labor and Education Organizer, joins us from California. Tiffany also formerly headed the U.S. Student Association, right, Tiffany?
Yes, sir.
So here's the thing. I was communicating today with someone about what we're seeing, and one of the things they said that's happening that's happening there in Columbia is that people are forgetting exactly why there are protests. I was told that Columbia opened a global center with a dual degree program with Tel Aviv University. 40 students are enrolled. The problem is Palestinian students can't enroll or use the program. And the students in the original letter, they were demanding that the university end this program. Also, because of Israeli policies, it restricts Palestinians students from accessing or visiting the global center. So what someone said is, so Columbia essentially knowingly constructed a Jim Crow educational program. That was the reason for the original protest. What you now see this back and forth. You hear people saying, that even if you're protesting is anti-Semitic. Part of the issue you also have is on some of these campuses, you don't know who's actually a student, who are people from the outside. And so now this thing is all over the place. What are you hearing? And now you got Republicans showing up at Columbia. Now that the Proud Boy, how you got the racist Proud Boys rolling up to Columbia trying to fight anti-Semitism with their racist ass. Right. I mean, this is what you're now dealing with these protests.
That's right. Roland, I've been to Palestine 3 times. So, folks, your audience should know this. One, I've been to Palestine 3 times. And as you mentioned, I used to be the president of a national student organization called the United States Student Association, National Civil Rights Advocacy Organization, student-run, student-led. And I have taught classes at UC Santa Cruz over the last 3 or 4 years. The students who are protesting at Columbia, like you said, are protesting for access to the program. But the hypocrisy is the reason why students across the country are now booming in protest is because those same practices of segregation based off of religion or based off of identity or based off of your nationality are actually mirror to what Israel does to Palestinians already outside in the Middle East. It's what they do in Gaza. It's what they do in Israel, outside of the Middle East during the occupation. So you have students who are Palestinian who already have been displaced because they can't participate as whole citizens in Israel, come to the campus, and now they can't participate in programs, again, because of their nationality and because of their religion. 42,000 people, Roland, have been killed. 80,000 have been injured. And 442 schools in Gaza have been destroyed. So when you have the valedictorian, which is a prestigious accomplishment at the University of Southern California, who out of 400 other students got chosen to give the remarks at the graduation, be told we're not going to let you speak for safety reasons, and because there are students on campus who don't feel safe with the valedictorian speaking, because the link in your bio on Instagram told people to donate to the damages in Gaza, we really have an issue. We're talking about democracy. And for everybody listening to the sound of my voice, I want to remind us, yes, there are small cases where we have people who are not current students on the campuses and university. But a lot of the encampments that we see, and you name some of the schools, Roland, we got Princeton, Brown, Cornell University, University of Pennsylvania, Rochester, Delaware, Tufts University, my homegirl Aja's at UC Berkeley right now, University of Michigan, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Humboldt, Cal Poly, University of Texas at Austin, UCLA, USC, Columbia University, etc. These students that are building these encampments are doing it for one major reason. One, students are not criminals. So we are watching students live document their experiences with police officers on horses, with batons. Students at Emory University just got tased. 400 plus students across the country have now been arrested, and now they're trying to fundraise money to bail these students out. My homeboy, President Griggs of the Georgia NAACP, has demanded to meet with the president of Emory University so that he can talk about mitigating the damages and the treatment from police officers off campus and off campus who are coming on campus and treating these students like they are criminals. These students are doing peaceful protests, and they are on purpose, because the definition of protest is also to disturb the practices as usual, business as usual, is that they are on campus occupying, which we have seen before, spaces for students to say, listen, we no longer want segregation. We don't want our campuses to invest in Israel. We want to divest from weapons, arms, and sending money over to Israel. We want to free Gaza. We want to free Palestine. And I think, Roland, police officers and campuses, administrations, and especially elected officials need to take this moment more seriously and allow the students to peacefully demonstrate, to peacefully express their freedom of speech. And come to the table to have discussions about how to make these campuses more inclusive. Because what you're watching right now is dangerous and it is wrong.
I'm looking here. There was a protest at Ohio State, and they actually had snipers on the roof.
Yep. So I looked for that on the internet, Roland, because I was trying to see if that was real or not.
It is as if there's this, I mean, literally in Texas, right here in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott called in. He didn't. University of Texas is located in Austin, Texas. The Austin Police Department wasn't at the protest.
Right.
The Travis County Sheriff's Office was at the protest. The governor literally called in Department of Public Safety state troopers from several cities to come into the campus. And so these folks are literally trying to crush dissent.
That's right. We've also seen rumors, Roland, that the federal government is thinking about calling the National Guard in to dissent to break up these students and to end the encampments. But I've also seen a video, Roland, of
so hold on one second. So the federal government can't do that. So what has to happen is a governor of a state has to request the National Guard. So a governor. So if it's in New York State, Hochul has to make that request to the federal government. In Texas, same way. And so the feds can't unilaterally send the National Guard into a state unless the governor makes the request. Go ahead.
That's really helpful for students to know right now. And I think all the information around the legalities, the fundraising, the legal processes are really important for us to share with students who, mind you, some of these students were attending campuses and university during the pandemic and have no idea what it's like to be able to organize on a university or on a campus. So all the information and all of the knowledge that we have about how to make sure they first stay safe, and two, that they're able to demonstrate and exercise their right to freedom of speech is really important. I saw a video, Roland, in Washington, D.C., of faculty from different schools coming together and literally holding arms with each other, surrounding the student encampment in order to say, we are standing in solidarity with these students and we will protect these students because they have every right to be angry. They have every right to demonstrate. And the power, right, of what is happening right now with student leadership across the country, doing this in unison and showing up in encampments when the government is now trying to ban TikTok, I think just demonstrates the strategic capabilities of young people across the country to organize for one cause and one movement. Now, in every state and every school has different relationships to Israel, has different rules around divestment, have different demands, but the cause in of itself is the same. And you see students rocking keffiyehs on their campuses. They are spending the night at their schools. Community members are coming in to pass out water and pizza and face masks and sleeping bags and blankets and etc. to support these students in their cause. And it's so important that we give students a space. This is how I got into organizing, Roland. It wasn't necessarily through a protest for Palestine, but I got involved because somebody hung a noose on my campus when I was running for student body president. And if it had not been for the students at that school who stood with me in solidarity when the regents rose our tuition, if it had not been for community members who came to the campus to support students when they hung the noose at my school, when they told us that we couldn't mass mobilize and hold protests to keep ourselves safe or to demand change on campus, I would not be a national leader right now. I would not have been the national director of the NAACP. I would not have been a national organizer in labor. I would have not have been a national organizer for student loan debt cancellation. So what we're seeing right now is really empowering. And I'm rooting for the students, and we got to make sure that they're able to continue their movement and have faculty and labor unions and community members and elected officials come out and support these young people.
Questions for our panel. Let's go with the college professor, Dr. Greg Carr.
Thank you, Roland. And yeah, let me join with Nolan and please tell your father happy birthday from me. Lucky 777. That's a lucky number, brother. So, and it's good to see you, sis. Good to see you, Tiffany.
You too.
I was following along some of the stuff. I saw some of the students from the AUC who had gone over. I think at least one young brother was arrested. I saw them back over at the King Chapel. There was some video online. I'm wondering how you see this unfolding. Clearly, it's not going away. So I got a message from some colleagues at the University of Texas. They say no teaching today. They were out there, no grading, no teaching, no business as usual. Saw Ruha Benjamin at Princeton saying something along similar lines. Do you see this unfolding, perhaps not the same, but in a similar arc, given that the Democrats will be in Chicago this summer, as the anti-Vietnam War efforts in '68, which, of course, some people would say led to the riotous convention in Chicago in 1968 with the racist Daley, and perhaps the return of Richard Nixon. I'm just thinking about how you see it, because it's not going away. How do you see this unfolding on the landscape of national electoral politics this year?
That's a great question, Dr. Carr. Let me say a few things. One, we have been watching the genocide of Gaza for over 200 days. And in any national campaign where young people have been a part of a movement, there have been ebbs and flows. We've seen mass protests across the country in major cities, metropolitan cities, to say free Gaza. And now we have students who have just come back from spring break, who are taking over their campuses with encampments to say we also want to free Gaza. And our university has a relationship with Israel, and we want to break that relationship. The school is going to continue for the next few weeks. We just saw, like I said, USC canceled their commencement because of the unsafe fear that they might have for a Muslim valedictorian speaking. I am sure that these protests will continue for the rest of the school year. That I am confident in. What I'm also confident in is I actually just returned from Washington, D.C., Dr. Carr. And I'm sorry I didn't text you when I was there, but when I come back, I will hit you up. But I was in Washington, D.C., and there were 9 states. This is hard for listeners to understand, so hear me. Where school systems, university school systems exist, there are what we call statewide student associations. What those are student governments from all of those schools in the school system forming an organization. We had 9 of those in Washington, D.C. gather together to talk only about how do we build now a national student organization? How do we bring back a national student organization that could be a vehicle and a container for young people to organize in really big ways? And this is, I'm really upset and pissed off and sad about what's happening in Gaza. But because of this catastrophe, young people have been able to mobilize and organize themselves to create structure to continue the fight. And America ought to be trembling If young people are organizing on campuses right now, form an organization, and then use that organization to organize politically for the elections, America ought to be petrified. And so I think once this organization takes off, because of the momentum, young people are now looking for a political home to be a part of, that it matches their values. And Dr. Carr, you and I could talk about this all day, and Uncle Roland, we've texted about this. There are a lot of organizations right now that young people feel like cannot be their political homes because they don't identify with the values of the leadership of that organization. So if they can't find it, they're going to build it. And if they build it, this year's elections are going to suffer if they do not match the needs and the demands of what students are saying right now.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Nola.
Thank you so much, sis, for doing the work that you do. And, you know, I have so many intersections where this hits home. I got my PhD at USC. I did not have a great time at USC. I got my undergrad at UCLA, and I went to Harvard, and I'm a professor at Georgetown. There's a lot of intersecting things for me that's happening, you know, and, you know, on the other side of things, I'm also a national security and foreign policy expert. And so when this whole situation first started at USC, and when I first saw it in the news, I said, oh, Lord Jesus, today, please give us strength. And when that young woman was denied being able to speak, and the messaging that went out, that USC put out, I was so upset as a security professional because I thought that it failed not only the student body, but it failed the American people by not saying, what are those security threats? Now, in my mind, the first thing that I went to was, okay, a day or two before that happened, the FBI
I need to add,
said the amount of terrorists.
No, hold on. I need to add, USC came in about an hour ago. So USC has decided there's not even going to be a commencement now.
Oh, yeah, I said that.
I know.
Yeah. They're canceling the entire commencement. First, they canceled the valedictorian. Then they canceled guest speakers. Now they canceled the entire graduation.
So she couldn't speak.
I get all the still. Like, I know.
I mean, it's crazy.
And you know what I think they should do? I think they should hold their own graduation. They should hold their own graduation.
Here's the context thing that I'm really, really upset with. If this is a security concern, let us know. What is it? The students not only need to know what that is, but everybody else, if you have not met social media, need to know what that is too, because the FBI absolutely did come out and say that terrorist threats, that the rise in threats are very real, and we need to take those into serious consideration. Is that what it's about? I want to know. I still have questions. What are these security concerns? So that's the first part of it. As you know, having been at USC for 6 years and having my own situations that happened to me and what's happening to students, and some of those students, and we need to keep in mind, these are babies that are still suffering from quarantine.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have still not had experiences in terms of, you know, experiencing college life or high school life. And now you're taking this away from them. That is going to leave a scar. That's one part of it. The other parts, in terms of the way that this has spread to other universities, and when I read the demands, I'm getting to my question, I promise. As a UCLA student, the UCs have a long tradition of protesting. And honey, I was one of those students protesting for any and everything when I was an undergrad. So there is precedent for universities divesting from things like apartheid. There's precedence there, right? So what the students are asking for, many of these things are not outside of the realm of reality, right? So my question is, I have a lot more to say, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. What do you think, in your professional opinion, and from all of your experiences, what can that conversation look like between the students and the administration? What do you think needs to happen for there to be some sort of diplomatic endeavors, some sort of consensus, some sort of agreement? Because to see semi-automatic weapons pointed at students on campuses that I grew up on, that I taught on, breaks my heart in so many directions I cannot even begin to express. In your professional opinion, what do you think next steps are? What needs to happen?
So that's a great question, and I won't pretend
Answer that question.
Huh?
What did you say?
I didn't hear you,
I said, I'm glad we finally got to that question.
This what
we was building. We was building. This is how organized work. We was building. He said, I'm glad we got to the question. I'm glad you asked that. And I want to preface this by saying that although I graduated from the University of California, Santa Cruz, I'm not a current student. And we are constantly receiving new information for how the students want to move. And they are leading in this moment. What I would recommend and what I also am training my students to understand is how power works. And to answer your question, the next things that they can do, because school's almost out in a few weeks, graduation is coming up, there are things that they can do to support themselves on campus, like I said, host their own graduation. And there are things that they can do to challenge the relationships of power. And, when I was on campus and when I told you all the story about somebody hanging a noose at school, we worked with the student government to have meetings with the administrators on campus and the chancellor. And then when they didn't listen to us, we met with elected officials on the statewide level. What we're seeing is the demonstration of power in numbers. This is not just because 10 students took over the campus. We've got 50, 100, 1,000 young people on these campuses taking over and spending the night for multiple days. They are demonstrating in numbers how powerful they are. And there's currently a letter that is being drafted by students that is going to go around nationally for all students to sign on to, so we can measure not only how widely felt this is, but how deeply felt this is. And once those young people, I'm about to say once those young people are able to demonstrate the number in powers, they can go to their elected officials and demand certain changes during a presidential election. We've been demanding it on social media, but elected officials don't really listen to us on social media, right? This social media is for us. What we need to do is demonstrate our power and meet with elected officials. Now, I am very well experienced that sometimes you meet with elected officials and they don't give a damn what you have to say. And then we have to escalate our tactics. And we will continue to see that happen, even so now, while young people are getting arrested for the cause. So I think that there are multiple avenues that young people will continue to take. Resistance is one of the biggest tools that we have in our toolbox. And we're going to continue to support students as they're taking over their campuses. And whatever it is that they decide to do over the summertime, gearing up for the fall when they come back, to answer Dr. Carr's question again, which I do believe this will continue into the rest of the year, especially since elections are November 5th, we're going to see students build on a strategy that we have not seen before.
Thank you.
Lauren?
So, Tiffany, they're building on a strategy. Hey, Tiffany, how you doing? How are you?
Good to see you.
Great seeing you. They're building on a strategy towards what issue, I wonder. Earlier this week, I was at Columbia University, and I guess I'm a bit of an isolationist. We have the 70th anniversary of Brown v. Board coming up, and I think about Ruby Bridges and the Little Rock Nine and James Meredith, and I don't really, I look at things through the lens of how is this going to affect African-American students in the United States? That's just what I think about. And, I'm not seeing where this would matter for that particular cohort. Obviously, as you know, Tiffany, Congress just allocated another $60 billion to Israel. I'm sorry, $60 billion to Ukraine, and 24 to Israel, and 8 billion to Taiwan. In a world where people are sleeping on the streets in the United States, and obviously, Biden has done good with student loan forgiveness, I believe. But I just wonder, where in this story should this matter for HBCUs, for African-American students, for the things that are seen through that lens? It's not that I don't care about what's going on in the Middle East, but I'm curious about that, and I'm always focused on that no matter what's going on. So I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
That's a fantastic question, and this would not be the Roland Martin Digital Show if we didn't ask that question. So thank you, Lauren. Two things. One, we talked about on this platform the public safety training facility in Atlanta, Georgia, that is being built, that protesters have been escalating tactics around to stop from building and to reframe those funds for other purposes in the state of Georgia and in the city of Atlanta. We have watched young people during the Black Lives Matter movement take over their campuses and form Black Lives Matter chapters and protest against the police, against police brutality, to stand in solidarity with families who have lost loved ones to police officers. We've talked about all of that here on this show. And there are direct connections, financial connections, political connections, electoral connections to how Israel trains police officers in the United States, and how those United States police officers who were trained in Israel attack and target Black students on campus. So there's a direct correlation, which is why you see so many Black people who understand that connection and who have been to Palestine or have joined Blacks for Palestine, the organization, or stand in solidarity with Blacks and Muslim people, because we know Black folks are Muslim as well. You've seen so much language and conversation about those communities coming together. That's one reason why. It's because state violence is inspired by Israel. And America continues to fund Israel and store our weapons. There's a whole warehouse in Israel with bullets and missiles and weapons that the United States has just in case they need it for us. And we know that they didn't use them during the insurrection. But if Black people were to take over this country and have a protest for whatever it is that we wanted to fight for, we're going to see the exact same attacks on Black folks that we have seen on students right now and on Palestinians in Israel. So there's a direct connection here when we talk about state violence and police officers. But to answer your question as well, we know that the budget does not work as easily as I hope it would. I hope that we can just say, Joe Biden, don't spend billions of dollars on foreign aid, cancel all the student loan debt. But the budget doesn't work like that. And so what we're saying is young people right now on campus don't at all qualify for Joe Biden's plan on student loan debt forgiveness because their loans were not discharged in 2021. I believe 2021. I might fact check that. I think it was 2021, 2022. I believe it's 2021. If their loans were not discharged by June of 2021, then they don't qualify for this program. There are other programs that they can apply to, and we hope and pray that that works out. But in terms of his student loan debt cancellation process that he's been doing, the rounds that he's been making, it's for people who have already graduated and already have the debt. But young people are like, well, wait a minute, if you can give billions and billions of dollars to Israel to continue the occupation, then why can't you make education free? Then why can't you cancel student loan debt? Then why can't you pay teachers a fair wage? Then why can't you support DEI programs? Why do we have to fire 61 faculty members in Texas because y'all wanted to ban DEI? Why can't we support undocumented students with financial aid? Why can't we increase the Pell Grant? There's a direct correlation here, and all of those issues impact the Black community. They all impact young Black people who want to go to school. They all impact Black people who want to graduate when they go to college. And so these issues are intersected, and there's no way to separate them, especially as we think about Black people who are incarcerated in the United States and the connection that that means from the inspiration they get from Israel.
All right, then. Well, Tiffany, we'll appreciate it. We'll see exactly if we're going to see more protest grow across the country. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Love y'all.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.